Welcome back, everyone. Today, we're going to be doing a deep dive into cyber espionage, specifically a group called Secret Blizzard. We usually think about these high-level hacking groups,
Yeah.
developing their own cutting-edge tools, right?
hmm
What's so fascinating about Secret Blizzard is that they've kind of opted for a different approach. They're kind of like the ultimate freeloaders in the world of cyber espionage. So we're going to be looking at two different Microsoft security blog articles today, both authored by Microsoft Threat Intelligence, that lay out exactly how they pull this off.
It's so interesting. It really challenges all of our assumptions about how these actors operate
Right.
in cyberspace.
They're piggybacking off the work of other hacker groups, cyber criminals even. Think of it like breaking into a house.
Right.
But instead of picking the lock yourself, you wait for someone to unlock the door and slip in behind them.
Yeah, that's a great analogy. And it really highlights a key takeaway from both of these Microsoft articles, which is that even in the realm of nation-state espionage, efficiency and opportunism are highly valued.
Let's start with the basics. Who is Secret Blizzard?
Yeah.
Well, from sources like CISA, the U.S. Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, we know that they're tied to Center 16 of the Russian FSB, their main intelligence agency. But they go by a lot of different names in the cyber world, right? Turla, Waterbug, Venomous Bear. It's like they're trying to make it extra hard to keep track of them.
Right. Well, anonymity is key in their line of work, and their typical targets. It makes sense why they'd want to stay under the radar. Ministries, embassies, defense organizations, they're going after the crown jewels of a nation's secrets.
It's like a digital heist movie. But instead of stealing money, they're after information, political intel, advanced research, anything that could give them a strategic advantage.
Yeah.
So their motive is clear: long-term access for intelligence gathering.
Exactly. And that's where their unusual tactics come into play, as these Microsoft articles detail. Secret Blizzard has this history of exploiting other hackers' work, so they've infiltrated.
Iranian and Kazakh groups, reported by Symantec and Kaspersky.
Hmm.
And these are just a few examples. And we're not just talking about random amateur hackers, right? These are established groups with their own capabilities. And yet, Secret Blizzard still finds a way to compromise them and steal their access. It seems kind of counterintuitive.
Yeah. It raises some really intriguing questions, like why would a group with the resources and skills of the FSB choose to rely on the work of others? It's high risk, high reward.
Right.
I mean, on the one hand, it's efficient, right? They don't have to start from scratch. They just exploit existing vulnerabilities and access points. But on the other hand, they expose themselves to a certain level of risk.
Right, because if
Mm-hmm.
the group they're exploiting
Uh,
makes a mistake or gets detected, that could lead investigators right back to them.
Yeah.
And we know that in the world of cyber espionage, maintaining plausible deniability is everything.
Absolutely. So to better understand their approach, let's dive into a specific example. Secret Blizzard's exploitation of a group known as Storm 0156.
Yes. Storm 0156, also known as Side Copy,
Yeah.
Transparent Tribe, and APT-36. They love their aliases. It's a Pakistani group that's primarily targeting entities in South Asia, Afghanistan, and India. What makes this case so interesting is how Secret Blizzard used them as a springboard for their own operations.
Yeah.
We can see from the Microsoft article how they compromised Storm 0156's infrastructure and used that existing access to target those same South Asian entities that they were after. Specific files, device information, details about network connections, anything that could be valuable for intelligence purposes.
Okay, so they're basically hijacking another group's espionage operation, but how are they actually doing this? It's one thing to say they compromise the infrastructure, but it's another to actually understand the technical details.
Well, Storm 0156, they use a variety of backdoors to maintain access to their targets. We're talking programs like
Right.
Arsenal V2, Crimson Rat, and Wainscot. These backdoors basically create these hidden entry points that allow them to remotely control compromised systems. Imagine a secret tunnel leading into a heavily guarded fortress. That's basically what a backdoor does. It bypasses all the security measures and gives them unfettered access.
Precisely. And in this case, Secret Blizzard didn't just exploit the existing backdoors, they also installed their own tools like Mini Pocket
Uh-huh.
and 2-Dash, which we'll get into later.
So they're adding their own secret tunnels to this already compromised fortress. This is where it starts to get really mind-boggling. We're talking about multiple layers of espionage here, with one group exploiting another group's access. It's like a digital Russian nesting doll.
And it makes attribution so difficult. If you're trying to investigate a cyber attack, how do you determine who's ultimately responsible? Is it the group that created the initial backdoor? or the group that exploited that backdoor to install their own tools, it becomes this very complex puzzle.
It's like trying to solve a crime where the perpetrator.
Wore a mask, gloves, and used a fake ID. It's no wonder these groups are so hard to track down. Exactly. In this case with Storm 0156, it really highlights the challenges of operating in this space. You don't just have to worry about your own security, but you also have to be aware of the potential for other actors, both friendly and hostile, to exploit your work.
You're saying, even if you're a sophisticated espionage group like Storm 0156, you're still vulnerable to being hijacked by someone even more clever.
That's the reality of the modern cyber threat landscape. No one is immune. And as we'll see when we delve into Secret Blizzard's activities in Ukraine, they're not afraid to diversify their tactics and exploit any available avenue to achieve their objective.
So from South Asia, we're shifting our focus to Ukraine, where Secret Blizzard employed a completely different approach. They ditched the piggybacking strategy and went for something a lot more direct, but equally shady.
Yeah, this is where the concept of malware as a service comes into play. Think of it like renting a car instead of stealing one. In this case, the car is a botnet, a network of compromised computers that can be controlled remotely, and the rental agency. Are cyber criminals?
Wait, so they're basically buying access from criminals.
Right.
That seems like a risky move for a nation-state actor. Wouldn't that leave a trail?
It is a calculated risk, but it's also surprisingly common. Research from Microsoft suggests that Secret Blizzard leveraged a cyber criminal botnet called Amadi to gain initial footholds in Ukrainian systems.
Amadi. That name rings a bell. Are they known for distributing all sorts of nasty malware?
They are, and that's precisely what makes this so interesting. Secret Blizzard essentially weaponized a criminal tool for espionage purposes.
They're not just relying on other espionage groups, they're tapping into the cybercrime ecosystem as well. It seems like they're blurring the lines between different types of cyber threats.
Yeah, they are, and it makes it even harder to track their activities and understand their motives, but one thing's for sure, they're adaptable, they're resourceful, and they're willing to use any means necessary to achieve their objectives.
So, they compromised a Pakistani group to target entities in South Asia. They used a cybercriminal botnet to gain access to Ukrainian systems. What's next? Do they have like a loyalty program for all the different hacking groups they exploited?
We'll delve into that in just a moment, but first, let's take a closer look at how they actually leveraged the Amade botnet and what they were after in Ukraine. So picking up where we left off, let's take a look at Secret Blizzard's activities in Ukraine and how they actually utilized this Amade botnet. It wasn't just about renting access. It was about strategic deployment. According to the Microsoft article, Secret Blizzard appears to have used Amade to deliver specific tools designed for these stealthy operations.
Okay, so they're using this criminal network as like a delivery service for their own malicious software, like ordering takeout, but instead of food, you're getting a package full of cyber espionage tools.
That's a pretty accurate way to put it. And what makes this even more intriguing is the type of malware they were deploying. We're not talking about you, run-of-the-mill viruses or ransomware. They're using custom tools, specifically designed for espionage. Things like a PowerShell dropper and a backdoor called Tavdig.
Tavdig! That sounds almost poetic for a piece of malicious software.
Yeah.
What can you tell me about this backdoor and why is it so significant?
Well, backdoors, as we discussed earlier, provide this covert way to access and control a compromised system. But what sets Tavdig apart is its stealth and its persistence. It's designed to blend in with normal system processes, making it extremely difficult to detect and remove.
So even if you're running antivirus software and think you've cleaned up your system, Tavdig could still be lurking in the shadows, silently sending information back to Secret Blizzard.
That's the risk. And it really underscores the importance of proactive threat hunting and having a deep understanding of your network. Because if you're just relying on automated security tools, you might miss these subtle signs of compromise.
So they're using this botnet to deliver these stealthy tools. But who are they targeting in Ukraine? Are they going after the same types of targets? You know, government agencies, embassies, things like that.
The Microsoft article points to a shift in focus. It seems they were particularly interested in Ukrainian military devices, including those using Starlink for internet access.
Wait, Starlink. That's Elon Musk's satellite internet system, right?
Right.
The one they've been using to provide internet access in Ukraine during the conflict.
Exactly, and that's what makes this so significant. They're targeting systems that are absolutely crucial for communication and coordination in a conflict zone. It raises the stakes considerably.
It's almost like they're trying to gain a tactical advantage by disrupting or intercepting military communications. This whole thing goes from feeling like a digital heist to something much more serious, like cyber warfare.
It certainly blurs the lines
Yeah.
between espionage and active interference in a conflict. And it's not just about TavDig. The Microsoft article also mentions a reconnaissance tool that was designed to gather detailed information about compromised systems.
So, they're not just installing backdoors. They're actively profiling these Ukrainian military devices. What kind of information are they looking for?
They were interested in things like directory structure, system details, active sessions, network connections, basically anything that would give them a complete picture of the target's environment. And in some cases, they were even checking to see if Microsoft Defender was running.
So they're scouting out the defenses, seeing what kind of security measures they're up against. It's like they're doing a recon mission before launching a full-scale attack.
That's a really good way to think about it. They're not just blindly deploying malware. They're carefully selecting their targets, gathering information,
Right.
and adapting their approach based on what they find. It speaks to a very high level of planning and operational security.
Okay, so to recap, they're leveraging a criminal botnet, that they're deploying these stealthy backdoors, they're targeting Ukrainian military devices using Starlink, and they're actively profiling these systems. This is starting to sound less like a bunch of freeloaders
Yeah.
and more like a highly organized, highly motivated cyber army.
Well, remember, we're only seeing a glimpse of their activities. These two Microsoft articles provide a valuable snapshot, but there's likely much more going on beneath the surface. And as we'll see when we examine another instance of Secret Blizzard exploiting a different group, their tactics continue to evolve and adapt to the changing landscape.
Okay, I'm ready for the next layer of this digital onion. Who are they exploiting this time?
This time, they set their sights on a group known as Storm 1837, and their choice of target is especially intriguing because Storm 1837 is known for, wait for it, targeting Ukrainian drone operators.
Hold on, so they're targeting a group that's already targeting Ukrainian military assets. That's a double layer of exploitation. They're like those Russian nesting dolls,
Yeah.
but with extra steps.
It does make you wonder about their overall strategy. Are they trying to maximize their impact by hitting the same targets from multiple angles, or are they simply exploiting any available opportunity, regardless of who's already on the scene?
It's like a digital turf war. But instead of gangs fighting over street corners, we've got nation-state actors and cyber criminals competing for access to valuable targets.
It's a complex and ever-shifting landscape. But what we can say for certain is that Secret Blizzard is a major player, and their willingness to exploit other groups, regardless of their affiliation, makes them a particularly formidable adversary.
So, they've exploited a Pakistani group, they've leveraged a cyber criminal botnet, and now they're targeting a group that's already targeting Ukrainian drone operators.
Are there any ethical lines they won't cross?
Well, as we've discussed before, the world of cyber espionage operates in a gray zone. What might be considered unethical in one context might be seen as a necessary tactic in another. I guess that's a conversation for a different deep dive. But for now, I'm eager to learn more about how they actually exploited Storm 1837. Did they use the same techniques as before, or did they come up with something new? So they're targeting a group that's already targeting Ukrainian military assets, specifically drone operators. That's layers upon layers of intrigue. Did they reinvent the wheel to pull this off, or are we seeing a familiar playbook?
What's really striking about this operation is not so much the novelty of the approach, but rather their adaptation and refinement of existing techniques. According to the Microsoft article, they leveraged a backdoor that Storm 1837 was already using to access Ukrainian systems. It's a case of why reinvent the wheel when you can just steal a perfectly functional one.
So, instead of creating their own entry point, they just piggybacked on an existing one. That's both clever and a little unnerving. It suggests that even groups that are actively targeting these sensitive systems can themselves become victims of exploitation.
Precisely. And it really highlights the importance of understanding that cybersecurity is not the static game. The threat landscape is constantly evolving, and even groups with sophisticated capabilities need to be constantly vigilant.
Okay, so they've got access. What did they do once they were inside these Ukrainian systems? Did they just sit there and eavesdrop, or were they more active?
According to the Microsoft article, they deployed the same malicious tools we saw in the Amity botnet operation, TavDig, and a particularly potent tool called Kazuar. Remember those secret tunnels we were talking about? Well, Kazuar is like a secret tunnel with multiple exits, making it extremely difficult to track and contain.
Kazuar. That sounds familiar. Didn't you mention that earlier when we were talking about their activities in Ukraine?
I did. It's one of their signature tools it's known for. It's stealth, its persistence, and its ability to bypass traditional security measures. It's designed to give them this long-term, undetected access to compromised systems.
So even if security teams manage to detect and remove Tavdig, Kazuar might still be lurking, providing a backdoor for Secret Blizzard to regain access. It's like a digital game of whack-a-mole.
That's a great way to visualize it. And it underscores the importance of having a comprehensive security approach. It's not just about detecting and removing malware. It's about understanding the adversary, their tactics, and their motivations.
Okay, so let's step back for a moment and try to synthesize all of this information. We've got a Russian group, Secret Blizzard, that's exploiting other hacking groups and even cybercriminals. To gain access to these valuable targets, they're deploying sophisticated tools, they're targeting systems that are critical for national security, and they're doing it all with a level of stealth and operational security that makes them incredibly difficult to detect and attribute.
That's a great summary. And what makes their approach so fascinating, and perhaps even a bit concerning, is their willingness to adapt and evolve. They're not tied to any particular technique or any target set. They're opportunistic, they're resourceful, and they're relentless in their pursuit of their objectives.
It's almost like they're constantly testing the boundaries, pushing the limits of what's possible in the realm of cyber espionage. It makes you wonder, what are the long-term implications of this type of activity? Are we going to see more groups adopting this freeloader approach?
It's definitely a trend worth watching as the cyber threat landscape continues to evolve and the lines between nation-state actors, cyber criminals, and hacktivists become increasingly blurred. We can expect to see more of this type of activity.
So if I'm an organization, what can I do to protect myself from this kind of multifaceted threat? It's not like I can just put up a no trespassing sign in cyberspace.
You're absolutely right. Traditional security measures, while they're still necessary, they're no longer sufficient. Organizations need to adopt a much more proactive and holistic approach to cybersecurity.
So what does that look like in practice? Can you give me some specific examples?
Well, first and foremost, it's about understanding your adversary. Who are you most likely to be targeted by? What are their motivations? What tactics do they typically employ? Once you have a better understanding of the threat, you can start to tailor your defenses accordingly.
So it's like a game of chess. You need to know your opponent's moves before you can effectively counter them.
Exactly. And in the case of Secret Blizzard, it means being aware of their tendency to exploit other groups' work. This might involve strengthening your relationships with information sharing communities, staying up to date on the latest threat intelligence, and implementing robust security controls to prevent lateral movement within your network.
So even if they manage to compromise one system, you want to make it as difficult as possible for them to spread to other parts of your network.
Precisely. Another key aspect is continuous monitoring and detection. It's not enough to just set up your security tools and forget about them. You need to actively monitor your systems for any suspicious activity, investigate any anomalies, and respond quickly to any potential incidents.
So proactive threat hunting is becoming increasingly important.
Absolutely. You need to be hunting for threats, not just waiting for them to find you. This might involve using advanced analytics, threat intelligence platforms, and even honeypots to lure attackers into revealing themselves.
It's not just about building walls, it's about setting traps and actively engaging with the adversary.
Precisely. And finally, perhaps most importantly, it's about building a culture of security awareness within your organization. Your employees are your first line of defense, and they need to be equipped with the knowledge and skills to identify and report any suspicious activity.
So education and training are crucial.
Absolutely. You need to educate your employees about phishing scams, social engineering tactics, and other common attack vectors, and you need to empower them to speak up. If they see something that doesn't look right...
It's about creating a human firewall, so to speak.
Exactly. And that human firewall, combined with strong technical controls, proactive threat hunting, and a robust security posture can significantly reduce your risk of being compromised by groups like Secret Blizzard.
So the takeaway here is, while the threat is very real, and these groups are incredibly sophisticated, there are steps we can take to protect ourselves. It's not about being paranoid, it's about being prepared.
Well said. It's about understanding the threat, adapting your defenses, and staying one step ahead.
We've covered a lot of ground today, exploring this fascinating and somewhat unsettling world of cyber espionage. From hijacking infrastructure to leveraging criminal botnets, Secret Blizzard has really shown us that even in this shadowy realm, opportunism and efficiency reign supreme.
Indeed. Their willingness to exploit the work of others, whether it's rival espionage groups or cybercriminals, makes them a particularly challenging adversary. And their tactics, as outlined in these Microsoft articles, provide us with this valuable glimpse into the evolving nature of the cyber threat landscape.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, the key takeaway is clear. In today's interconnected world, no one is immune to cyber threats. But by understanding the tactics, the motivations, and the capabilities of groups like Secret Blizzard, we can better prepare ourselves to defend against them.
Well said. And remember, knowledge is power. The more we understand about the threat landscape, the better equipped we'll be to navigate it safely.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the world of Secret Blizzard. We'll be back next time with another fascinating exploration of the cyber realm. Until then, stay vigilant, stay informed, and stay safe.